Hello makers, welcome back to the Prusa Bear upgrade build. We should be at the last stretch here. Everything else that should go on will go on today. Hopefully I can, keep this into one episode. They tend to become quite long no matter how much editing I do on a video. But I hope that today I'll sort everything out. I have all my printed parts here once again because a lot of people ask me. These are printed in Polymaker Polymax because it's extremely tough. I'm gonna get right to it and see how it goes. We're gonna start the ZAxis assembly now, and for this you'll need the two smooth rods. You'll need the smooth rod holders, which are these 3D printed parts here. You'll need 8 5x12mm screws and 9 T-nuts. We're going to start by inserting 2 T-nuts from each end. And if you're wondering why I haven't inserted the screws and tied the T-nuts and then slide them in, is because there are these brackets here which would stop them from actually going in. I'm just going to align them and tighten them slightly. And on the back, where there's the short area here, you're going to insert 5 T-nuts in total. Just like that. Make sure the extra T-nut here is in the center, like between the other two wire rod holders. Next, we're going to grab the smooth rods, and I'm just going to push them in place, noting that this is still free flowing because I need to adjust the alignment. Next is the alignment of the rods. These have to be perfectly perpendicular. There are measurements on GitHub on how each part should be separated from the corners. This is the part that takes the most time because you have to make sure that each spacing is absolutely spot on. Before that, make sure that these extrusions here are perfectly flush with the edge, so you have a continuous smooth feel over here right where they meet on both sides, so you can make sure that this is exactly 370mm in length from here to here and also up here. Now the most important thing is to make sure, first of all, I do suggest using digital calipers for this to get the most accurate reading. You will need to have 82mm exactly from the plastic part right up until the edge of the extrusion. So what I would suggest is put your calipers on 82mm and then just see if it's completely flush with the edge. If it's not, if there's just a little bit, tighten these slightly so it doesn't move, but then you can simply just tap it on the side and it starts aligning itself. Just like that. Do the same thing for the rest. Now, in order to verify that everything is okay, one of the most important things to have is make sure that these are completely parallel and at the perfect spacing. And these should be exactly 162mm apart all the way. Now, I don't have calipers which, go that length. This is just 150. So I can use my measuring tape. And I can see that's exactly 162 over there. And 162 over there. Another measurement you can take is to measure between the two wire rod holders. That should be 134mm. So I have 134.08 on one side and I have 133.9 on the other side, which is well within margin. Next, we're going to need the Y motor, the Y idler, the Y motor mount, and the PSU lower mount. 3 M5x10s, 2 M5x12, and 3 M3x10. So first we're going to assemble the Y-axis motor to the mount in this orientation there. So the cable facing down this way. Grab the 3 M3x10 screws and secure them in place. Once they are secured, snap on the Y stepper holder, align it with the T-nut. Don't tighten it all the way because we need to align the distance here. Now the distance should be 54mm from this back wire rod holder. Move the stepper motor until it's flush in place. Tighten it slightly, just for same measure, double check. It's 54.2 and there should be 59 on this side. and we have 59.05. Next, grab your Y idler, insert the belt pulley from your previous kit, grab an M3 by 18, put it all the way through, grab a lock nut, set it on the other end, and tighten the screw for the roller to be, well, free rolling. So next, I'm gonna install the Y idler here, and it should be in this orientation. So this is the top of the frame. Grab the two M5 by 10 and just align them with the T-nuts. Looking at it from the bottom, the distance should be 120 millimeter from the inside of the frame right to the part of the Y idler. Next is the PSU lower mount, and this goes in the back right hand corner of the frame where we have this extra T-nut here. Grab the M5 by 10 screw, push it through, tighten it slightly, not all the way through, because even that needs alignment. I'll grab my calipers, set them to 44 millimeters. That is exactly the space it has to be from the edge of the frame to where it's locked in place. Once again, double check. Next is the bed assembly. However, instead of using the standard U-brackets to hold the bearings in place, I've 3D printed these bare parts as well. These are bearing holders, which they have grooves inside to hold the bearings in place, and they just slide in like that, and they're constantly secured. You will need M3 by 20s and using the same lock nuts to secure them in place. Do not over tighten these, obviously, just enough for them to lock themselves in nut and keep everything in place. Next, we're going to remove the rods, slide them through the bearings. If you feel that this is too tight, just do some adjustments on the bolts of the bearings. Now these should theoretically align perfectly. Now when you're tightening the screws to secure the bearings, my rule of thumb is if I hold this upright and it doesn't fall off, there's too much tension. So it's just not there yet. So I need to just back off a little bit. It's still secure in place, but it's free flowing. Now we just have to snap them in place. The side with the one bearing should be on the right hand side of the printer. Next, grab these two screws at the bottom of the Y stepper motor, undo them so you can have a bit of movement on the motor, so you can use that as tensioner. Grab the belt, pass it through the idler and the other end around the motor. Now the belt that's coming from the stepper motor goes into the bottom slot over here, and the belt coming from the idler will go on the top slot. Tension that as much as you can by hand and slide it in. As you can see, there's already a bit of tension here, but once you tighten this, you'll have perfect tension. Once the belt is in place and is properly tensioned, make sure you push the belt all the way in so it's properly aligned with the pulleys and the idler. Once that's done, grab a few cable ties and secure the rods in place. Next, we're going to attach the Z motor mounts. For that, we're going to need 6 M5 by 10 screws and 6 T-nuts. The orientation of the Z mounts should be like this. So these holes for the rods should be on the outside of each end, and these should be locked all the way down when tightened with screws. So we need 2 T-nuts on the outside slot and 1 on the inside slot. Now, one of the most important things here is to make sure that these are 90 degrees, so parallel to the frame here. Now that those are in place, we're going to insert the ZAxis motors and just slide it in. Pull it slightly upwards so it's flush with the motor mount. And this is where you can see if this is actually perpendicular to the frame. So from what I can see, it's slightly tilting to the left, so I need to adjust this motor mount slightly. When inserting the ZAxis motors, make sure the cable is facing inwards. Grab the 2 printed Z-mount covers and insert those in place, and then simply secure the Z stepper motors. Now, if you have assembled the X-axis as I did prior to all this, what I would suggest at this stage is do not tighten the screws for the Z stepper motors all the way in, so you can have some slack in order to work the X-axis into place. Once it's in place, you can then tighten all the screws. Once the X-axis is in place, this would be a perfect time to adjust and align the Z-axis rods. So just slide them in. Make sure that they pretty much fall into place when it comes to the alignment holes down on the brackets here. If not, just start doing some adjustments, release the tension of the belt. Make sure you unscrew everything pretty much just so it's loose, so it can just align into place. Once you find the right position, then just tighten everything up. Next, we'll need to do the top mounts, which will go up here. And to do so, we'll need 4 M5x10 screws and 4 T-nuts. Next, we need the LCD screen. Now, I do plan on making this a black LCD screen, but that's going to be a whole other episode because it is quite a bit of work. So for now, the original will stay. However, we're going to do this, and while I agree this is not an original Prusa anymore, it can easily be fixed. Better. Now, for those of you wondering, this is just PLA. It's not Polymax. I don't have all those colors, and I don't think they do come in those colors. But anyway, this is just standard PLA printed on the multi-material tool and the Mark III. So, next step is to insert the brackets, which should look like this in this orientation right here. Then that goes into the cover and snaps into place. Grab 2 M3x10 screws to secure it. That essentially will end up there. Grab 2 M5x10s and 2 T-nuts. Those will go in there. Next, we're going to grab 4 end covers with the Bear logo. Depending on the orientation, so you can see this has 3 free slots there, which are these 3 over here. Before that, we're going to grab some set screws and just prepare them in place. Slot those in. Once in place, just tighten the set screws. Next, we're going to put on the brackets for the power supply, which go right on this side. And we're going to use the same screws that came in with the Mark III kit, which are M4x12. Once done, this is going to go on the back right hand corner. And once you align everything, we'll just secure it in place. Before mounting it on, insert an M3 nut in the bracket. Once that nut is in place, you'll need 2 M5x10s, 2 T-nuts, and also an M3x18 screw. You're going to slot the T-nuts through this entry here. Turn the printer sideways so they're easily accessible. Insert the nuts, align. Now, before you tighten those, make sure you insert this screw down here, the M3x18. Once that's in place, you can go ahead and tighten these 2. Next, we need to install the INZ board, and to do so, just insert the nuts at the bottom here. For now, we're only going to secure these 2 inner M3x10s. Now, for this installation, you actually have to remove these 2 nuts back here, because we will be using these brackets. So now we need 2 M3x12s and tighten those all the way. Next, we will need 2 M5x8s and 2 T-nuts, and we are going to install this here. You have 1 screw there, and one screw which goes in here. To do so, I have to insert the T-nut through this slot up here, but unfortunately there's this, so all I have to do is just remove that, insert an extra nut. It goes back in there, grab the other T-nut, and slide all the way to the back. Now before I attach it, I'm gonna grab this cable and I'm gonna wrap it, because this will have to go there. That is in place. Next we'll need the rainbow lid cover and these two hinges, and these will attach onto the inside of the frame just like that. And to do so, all we need to do is grab two T-nuts, slide them into the inner profile, grab two 5x8 screws. We're just going to align the T-nuts and secure them in place. And we have the IZ door. Finally, what I'm going to do is simply attach the bed in place. Next, grab four M5x8 screws so we can insert them as end caps here. Last and final step is cable management. We have to route everything, attach it to the IZ board. The same process as an original i3 Mark III, same cables go to the same places. The only difference is with the Bear kit, you have these awesome connectors which just slide into the profiles, you twist, and then you have a cable holder. You have small ones, large ones. So we're going to be using that to route all the wires. Ta-da! And it's so pretty. I love it. I love it. It's the Bear Upgrade Prusa Mark Malta edition. I'm happy with the way it turned out. It prints beautifully. I did a small test print at 150 microns. It turned out great. Granted, this is the only test print I did. Once again, whether this will be better or worse than the original Mark III, I have no idea. I still have to print quite a lot with it. I will probably do a follow-up on this in a few months because I really need to use it well. But it's still as quiet, it still prints as well. A few suggestions that I do give is take your time with this build. It's not for the faint-hearted. It does require a bit of tinkering, so you know, just to make sure that everything is perfectly aligned. But it's a fun build, and that's the part I enjoyed most. I enjoyed putting this together. I enjoyed the end result. It looks absolutely great, and I'm happy I did it. I do want to thank LDO Motors for sending me the kit. I want to thank Greg, who designed his awesome upgrade. I also want to thank Magigoo for providing me the glue for me to be able to print the Polymax PC, which means that I also need to thank Polymaker for sending me the Polymax PC in order to try out, which I have to say is an incredibly strong filament. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and as always, happy making, guys.